In the vast, sun-scorched deserts of southern Peru lies one of humanity's greatest enigmas. Etched into the earth, enormous figures stretch across the barren landscape. A hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, a man with raised hands and countless lines that form perfect geometric shapes. These are the Nazca Lines, a mysterious network of geoglyphs so large they can only be seen from the sky. But here's the question that has haunted archaeologists, scientists, and dreamers for more than a century. Who created them, and why? Imagine this: more than 2,000 years ago, before airplanes, satellites, or drones, an ancient civilization carved designs spanning over 450 square kilometers into one of the driest places on Earth. Lines that never fade, even after millennia of wind and time. How did they achieve such precision, such scale, and most of all, such purpose? Some believe they were messages to the gods. Others think they were astronomical maps, pointing to constellations or solstice alignments. And some whisper that they might have been landing guides for visitors from the sky, a theory as controversial as it is captivating. But beyond myth and speculation, the Nazca Lines hold something deeper, something profoundly human. They may reveal not only the spiritual world of the Nazca people, but also a hidden truth about the human urge to communicate across time and space. In this episode, we'll journey through the scorching desert plains of Peru to uncover how these colossal artworks were made, what they meant to their creators, and why, after thousands of years, they still speak to something buried deep within us. Because perhaps these lines aren't just drawn on the earth. Perhaps they are drawn into the very heart of humanity itself. The story of the Nazca Lines begins long before the first airplane ever took flight, long before the modern world even knew they existed. In the arid plains between the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean, the Nazca civilization flourished from around 200 BCE to 600 CE. They were master farmers, astronomers, and artisans who somehow managed to survive in one of the driest places on Earth, where rain falls less than 1 inch per year. It's in this harsh, almost Martian landscape that the Nazca people carved their eternal message. The discovery for centuries, the Nazca Lines remained hidden in plain sight. Locals knew of them, but without a way to see them from above, their full scale was unimaginable. It wasn't until the 1920s, when airplanes began to fly over southern Peru, that pilots first reported strange white lines cutting across the desert. In 1941, a Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Gespe began the first serious study of the lines. But it was Maria Rieke, a German mathematician and linguist, who dedicated her entire life to understanding them. She meticulously measured the geoglyphs, mapped them, and protected them from destruction, earning the nickname the Lady of the Lines. Rieke believed the Nazca Lines were a kind of astronomical calendar, a celestial observatory that tracked the movement of the sun, moon, and stars to mark agricultural seasons. She spent decades trying to prove that the Nazca were early sky watchers, capable of aligning their art with cosmic events. The scale of the mystery. The Nazca Lines cover an area of roughly 450 square kilometers. And there are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 animal and plant designs, known as biomorphs. Some of these figures are enormous. The hummingbird stretches over 90 meters long. The condor has a wingspan of 130 meters. The monkey, with its spiral tail, measures over 135 meters. These designs were created by removing the reddish-brown top layer of desert pebbles, revealing a lighter layer of sand beneath. Because the Nazca Desert is so dry, windless, and stable, these lines have remained preserved for over 2 millennia. But their preservation is only part of the wonder. The question is how and why an ancient culture without flight could design figures that only make sense when viewed from above. Tools, techniques, and precision. Modern research suggests that the Nazca may have used simple surveying tools, stakes, ropes, and grids to map out large-scale drawings. Archaeologists have found wooden stakes at the ends of some lines, which could have served as markers for straightening and measuring. Through experiments, scientists have replicated these methods and proven that it's possible to create precise large-scale designs using basic geometry and careful teamwork. The Nazca were, in essence, engineers of the desert, capable of monumental feats without modern technology. Still, even with this explanation, something about the Nazca Lines resists complete understanding. Why would a civilization invest so much effort into something they could never fully see from the ground? Religious and cultural theories. One leading theory is that the lines had a ritual or spiritual purpose. The Nazca people practiced polytheism, worshipping deities connected to fertility, water, and the sky. Some archaeologists believe the lines were part of ceremonial pathways, rituals where priests and worshippers walked along the lines to invoke the gods for rain and harvest. Others propose that the geoglyphs were offerings to deities above, symbols meant to be seen by the gods themselves. The hummingbird, for instance, is often associated with life and resurrection, the spider with fertility, and the condor with the sky realm. Each image could have been a sacred prayer carved into the earth, a divine message written in the only language the gods could see: geometry. Astronomical connections. Maria Rieke's theory of the Nazca Lines as an astronomical calendar sparked decades of debate. She claimed certain lines aligned with the winter and summer solstices, while others pointed toward significant stars or constellations such as Orion and Pleiades, celestial markers for agricultural cycles. However, later studies found that only some of these alignments held up statistically, leading to a more nuanced view. While not a full astronomical map, the Nazca Lines may have been multifunctional, blending practical sky observation with religious symbolism. In ancient societies, there was no separation between science and spirituality. The movement of the heavens was both a physical and divine phenomenon. The Nazca could have believed that by drawing lines mirroring the heavens, they were bringing the cosmic order down to earth. Archaeological clues beneath the surface, excavations at nearby sites, such as Cahuachi, a vast ceremonial center of the Nazca culture, reveal that religion and ritual were deeply woven into their daily life. Thousands of offerings have been found: pottery, textiles, shells, and even human remains, suggesting large-scale pilgrimages and sacrifices. Researchers now believe the Nazca Lines may have been extensions of these sacred rituals, transforming the desert itself into a ceremonial landscape. From above, the lines connect sacred sites like rivers, mountains, and temples, linking the earthly and celestial worlds. Modern technologies, ancient secrets. In recent years, satellite imaging and drone mapping have revealed hundreds of previously unknown geoglyphs, some even older than the Nazca Lines. These discoveries suggest that the practice of desert geoglyph making may have begun with the earlier Paracas culture around 500 BCE, evolving into the grand designs of Nazca. Through LiDAR and aerial photography, archaeologists are uncovering geometric patterns invisible to the naked eye, proof that this was a living tradition, refined and expanded over centuries. But with every discovery, new questions arise. Were these designs meant for the gods, or for humanity's own sense of immortality? Were they messages to the sky, or mirrors reflecting our ancient desire to be seen, to be remembered? In the silent desert of Peru, where the wind has barely changed in 2,000 years, the Nazca Lines continue to whisper their message, a riddle written not in ink or stone, but in earth itself. And perhaps that's what makes them eternal. The Nazca Lines are not merely symbols on a barren landscape, they are a story, a silent conversation between an ancient civilization and something far greater than themselves. To truly understand their meaning, we must imagine what life was like for the Nazca people 2,000 years ago under the relentless Peruvian sun. The world of the Nazca people. Picture a vast desert plain. The horizon shimmers in heat, the ground is cracked and lifeless, and the sky burns white. To survive here was a daily miracle. The Nazca built complex irrigation systems, carving underground aqueducts called puquios that still function today. These channels drew groundwater to nourish crops like maize, beans, and cotton, a feat of engineering that defied the desert. But for a people who lived in such a fragile balance with nature, the greatest fear was drought. The sun gave life, but it also brought death. The Nazca knew this intimately. Their world revolved around pleasing the forces of nature and ensuring that water, the essence of all survival, continued to flow. That's where the lines may come in. Lines of pilgrimage. Imagine a group of Nazca priests walking in solemn procession across the desert. They carry clay vessels, decorated with animal motifs, filled with offerings. Their feet trace the white paths that lead toward a sacred mountain on the horizon. They chant prayers to the god of water, asking him to send rain to the thirsty land. This image is not fantasy. It's drawn from the evidence. Archaeologists have found fragments of ceremonial pottery, textiles, and wooden stakes along the lines, suggesting they were used in ritual pilgrimages. The lines themselves might not have been made to be seen from above, but to be walked. Each path could have been a sacred route, a journey of devotion, leading the participants into communion with their gods. To the Nazca, walking these lines was not merely movement, it was communication. The earth was alive, conscious, divine. Every step they took carved their prayers into the world itself. The geoglyphs as sacred beings. The animal figures, the hummingbird, spider, condor, and monkey, each held symbolic meaning in Nazca cosmology. The hummingbird represented resurrection and the arrival of the rains. In Andean myth, it was believed to be the messenger between worlds, drinking from the nectar of the gods. The spider found in Nazca pottery and textiles was associated with fertility and water. Its web mirrored the lines themselves, intricate, purposeful, divine. The monkey, with its spiral tail, could symbolize the cyclical nature of the universe, time, or even astronomical observation. The condor, soaring high above the Andes, was a messenger of the heavens, bridging the earthly and celestial realms. These creatures weren't mere decorations, they were living spirits. By engraving them into the earth, the Nazca were invoking their power. The desert became a canvas for worship, each figure a gateway between the human and divine. Messages to the gods above. Here the question becomes almost poetic. If these designs were meant for gods, who were those gods? For ancient Andean cultures, the sky was sacred. The stars, the sun, and the constellations were not distant. They were alive, watching, and guiding. The Nazca may have believed their deities resided above the clouds, in the realm of the condor and the sun. If so, then perhaps these geoglyphs were offerings meant to be seen from the heavens. This would explain the staggering scale. The Nazca wanted their gods to see their devotion, to know their prayers were written upon the earth itself. And in doing so, they achieved something no other civilization had: communication across dimensions. Earth to sky, mortal to divine. Astronomical alignments and cosmic maps. While many of the lines appear random, several align with solar and stellar events. Some researchers have identified lines that correspond with the June and December solstices, marking the movement of the sun, the eternal calendar of agricultural life. Others suggest that the spider geoglyph represents the constellation Orion, or that certain trapezoid shapes align with mountain peaks, considered the homes of gods in Andean cosmology. To the Nazca, the sky was not separate from the earth. it was its mirror. By drawing on the desert floor, they were recreating the cosmos, binding heaven and earth in a sacred symmetry. In that sense, the Nazca Lines were more than art. They were ritual architecture, a blueprint of the universe etched in stone and sand. The human element. But beyond the theories, one truth remains undeniable. The Nazca Lines are profoundly human. They reveal an ancient desire that still lives within us, the need to be remembered, to speak to something beyond ourselves. 2,000 years ago, the Nazca people likely stood at the edge of a newly carved figure, staring into the endless desert. They could not see the whole image. But they knew what it represented. They felt its power. It's the same feeling a modern artist has when painting a masterpiece that others may one day see from afar. The same instinct that drives us to build, to write, to create, so that a part of us might outlast time. The Nazca Lines are not only ancient symbols, they are a mirror of our own species' longing for permanence, meaning, and connection. A civilization's silent voice. When the Nazca civilization eventually declined, perhaps due to deforestation, shifting water sources, or climate change, their temples fell silent, their cities buried in dust. But their voices remained. Carved across the desert like a message from another world, their lines endure, untouched by centuries of wind or rain. Every geoglyph is a whisper from a vanished people. We were here. We understood the sky. We worshiped the earth. We left this for you to find. And indeed, we have found it. But the message remains incomplete, the language half forgotten. Maybe that is the true genius of the Nazca Lines. Not in what they show, but in what they make us feel. Wonder, humility, and the haunting awareness that time erases everything, except the human will to be remembered. For more than a century, the Nazca Lines have drawn explorers, scientists, and dreamers into their spell. Yet for every theory that attempts to explain them, new contradictions arise, proof that these immense desert drawings refuse to be neatly categorized. They belong to that rare class of ancient mysteries that exist on the boundary between science and myth. Debates among scholars. At the heart of academic debate lies one question. What were the Nazca Lines truly for? Some archaeologists, such as Anthony Aveni, argue that the lines were part of an astronomical ritual system, pathways that connected celestial events with agricultural ceremonies. Others, like Johann Reinhard, see them as sacred pilgrim routes tied to the worship of water, fertility, and mountain deities. Yet neither explanation fully accounts for every shape, every alignment, every symbol. For example, some of the largest figures are located far from known water sources or ritual centers. Others are isolated, seemingly without connection to nearby geoglyphs or settlements. And then there's the question of scale. Why make something so vast that only the sky could truly appreciate it? It's this paradox that keeps the mystery alive, a contradiction between practicality and transcendence. Alternative theories and unsolved mysteries. Not all explanations are grounded in archaeology. Some reach beyond it, into the realm of speculation, myth, and wonder. One of the most famous theories was proposed by Swiss author Erich von Däniken in the 1960s. In his book, Chariots of the Gods, he claimed the Nazca Lines were runways for ancient astronauts, landing sites for extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth in antiquity. According to von Däniken, the figures might have been communication symbols, designed to attract or guide beings from the sky. He pointed to the smooth, flat surfaces of some trapezoid lines as evidence of landing strips, and the humanoid figure known as the astronaut as a depiction of a visitor wearing a helmet. While mainstream science rejects these ideas as pseudoscience, it's impossible to deny their cultural impact. The notion of the Nazca as a message to the cosmos resonates deeply in human imagination. After all, If we sent the Voyager spacecraft into space, carrying golden records to communicate with distant life, why couldn't ancient humans have done something similar? Using the only medium they had, the Earth itself, the astronaut, and the Watchers. The so-called astronaut geoglyph, a strange humanoid figure carved on the side of a desert hill, remains one of the most enigmatic of all. It seems to raise one hand, as if waving or warning. Unlike the other designs, it's positioned vertically on a slope, visible from nearby plateaus, not just the sky. Some researchers interpret it as a sky watcher, a priest observing the heavens, recording the movement of stars. Others, drawn to more speculative thought, see it as a symbolic depiction of beings from above, perhaps deified ancestors or celestial spirits. Could the astronaut be a representation of the Nazca people's belief in messengers between worlds? Perhaps it's not a literal alien, but a mythic intermediary, a figure standing between Earth and the heavens, embodying humanity's longing to connect with what lies beyond. Whatever its origin, the astronaut reminds us that ancient art often blends cosmic and earthly truths, not as contradictions, but as reflections of the same mystery. Geomancy and earth energy. Another fringe yet fascinating hypothesis views the Nazca Lines as part of a global network of earth energy grids, invisible magnetic lines said to crisscross the planet. In this interpretation, ancient cultures like the Nazca, Egyptians, and Druids intuitively sensed these lines and built monuments upon them, pyramids, stone circles, and geoglyphs, believing them to be sacred intersections of planetary power. Though unproven, this theory evokes a poetic idea, that the Nazca Lines might not just be art or ritual, but part of a larger planetary harmony, a way of aligning human consciousness with the heartbeat of the Earth itself. To dismiss such speculation entirely would be to ignore one truth. Ancient people saw the world as alive, interconnected, and sacred. Whether through myth or measurement, they sought meaning in the patterns of both sky and soil. Clues. Hidden in the soil. Modern technology is helping to bridge the gap between speculation and science. In recent years, Japanese researchers using AI and drone mapping discovered 168 new geoglyphs, many depicting humans, animals, and abstract shapes invisible to the naked eye. These new findings suggest that the Nazca Lines were not made all at once, but evolved over centuries, possibly by different communities with varied purposes. Some may have been created for ritual processions, others for astronomical tracking, and still others for mythic storytelling. Interestingly, soil analysis has revealed microlayers of compacted sediment along certain lines, supporting the idea that hundreds, perhaps thousands of feet once walked those paths repeatedly. They were not only drawn, they were lived. Each line may have been a prayer path, a literal connection between humanity and divinity. When the sky stopped watching around 600 CE, the Nazca civilization began to collapse. Climate change struck mercilessly. Prolonged droughts, floods from El Niño, and deforestation eroded the fragile ecosystem they had built. The rivers dried, the puquios clogged with sand, and the sacred desert began reclaiming its secrets. Some archaeologists believe this environmental catastrophe may have transformed the Nazca's spiritual worldview. As the rains failed and crops withered, their rituals intensified. Desperate to reach their gods, they might have carved larger and larger geoglyphs, vast prayers etched in panic across the dying earth. But the gods did not answer. And so the Nazca vanished, leaving behind only the silent geometry of their faith. Echoes through time. Today, the Nazca Lines stand as both a triumph and a triumph of human imagination and a tragedy of forgotten meaning. We interpret them through the lens of science, yet we can't help but feel something mystical beneath their logic. Perhaps that's the true legacy of the Nazca people. They remind us that ancient knowledge was never merely practical. It was spiritual, symbolic, and cosmic all at once. Every straight line, every spiral, every animal figure is an echo of something larger, a memory of when humanity saw itself as part of a vast, living universe. And maybe that's why they still captivate us, because in their silence, they hold a mirror to our own questions. Who are we, really? What forces guide us? And what will remain of our civilization when the desert wind has erased our cities just as it buried theirs? The Nazca Lines are not a relic of the past. They are a message for the future. The mystery of the Nazca Lines isn't just about ancient people drawing strange symbols in the sand. It's about us. It's a reflection of what it means to be human, our need to understand the unknown, to leave a mark, and to speak to eternity, even when we know the desert will one day swallow our names. The human desire to be seen. Think about this. The Nazca people carved messages that could only be seen from the sky. And yet, they had no way to see them themselves. That means they created something not for their own eyes, but for the eyes of something or someone greater. Whether that was a god, a spirit, or the universe itself, it represents one of the deepest instincts of humankind, the desire to be witnessed. We build skyscrapers, monuments, and digital empires today for the same reason. Our cities glow like constellations when viewed from space, modern geoglyphs of light. Humanity still draws its patterns on the surface of the earth. Only now, our canvas is global and our tools are technological. The Nazca Lines are ancient proof that even without satellites or the internet, our ancestors already understood a truth that transcends time. We all want to be remembered. The lesson of devotion. In a world where instant gratification dominates, the Nazca Lines remind us of devotion, of patience, purpose, and faith in unseen outcomes. To carve hundreds of kilometers of lines in scorching heat without machines or modern precision took decades, perhaps generations. No single artist could have seen the final result. Each worker, each priest, each pilgrim played only a small part of something much larger. They built with faith, not certainty. Faith that their actions would please the gods. Faith that their rituals mattered. Faith that meaning existed, even if it could not be seen from the ground. Isn't that, in a way, what defines humanity's greatest achievements? From the pyramids of Egypt to the space telescopes orbiting our planet, progress has always been driven by belief in something beyond ourselves. The Nazca remind us that faith doesn't always mean religion. It means persistence in the face of the unknown. Messages across time. The desert is both a destroyer and a preserver. It erases life, but it protects what it buries. The Nazca Lines survived because of this paradox. The same sun that kills also guards. And now, thousands of years later, we walk upon their sands and ask, what were they trying to tell us? Maybe the message isn't in the lines themselves, but in the act of creation. The Nazca understood that knowledge and art could outlast bodies, kingdoms, even civilizations. They turned the very earth into a medium of memory. That's something modern society often forgets. We consume and discard, build and destroy, scroll and move on. Yet beneath it all, there's still a yearning to speak to the future, to say, we were here, just like the Nazca. Harmony between heaven and earth. The Nazca worldview was holistic. They didn't separate science from spirituality or nature from humanity. Their lines united sky, land, and life into one sacred geometry. Today, we've lost much of that balance. We see nature as something to conquer, not collaborate with. We build over rivers, strip forests, and mine deserts, the same deserts where ancient people once bowed in reverence. But imagine if we saw the earth as the Nazca did, not as property, but as a living canvas. Imagine cities designed with cosmic alignment in mind, architecture that mirrors constellations, agriculture that follows the rhythm of the stars. Perhaps the Nazca weren't primitive. They were visionaries. They understood that survival depended on harmony, not dominance. Their art was an expression of ecological wisdom, a constant dialogue between the human heart and the planet that sustains it. And that's a lesson we desperately need today. The power of collective creation. There's something profoundly moving in realizing that no single person created the Nazca Lines. They were a collective act, hundreds of hands working in unity, guided by shared purpose. In our modern world of individuality and self-promotion, this collective mindset feels almost alien. Yet, it's what made the impossible possible. What could humanity achieve if we remembered how to create together, not for personal fame, but for a common vision? The Nazca people didn't sign their names on their art. Their signature was the earth itself. That humility, that dedication to something beyond ego, might be the most powerful message the desert holds. The paradox of perspective. There's also a poetic irony to the Nazca Lines. Their true beauty can only be appreciated from above, from a perspective their creators could never reach. Isn't life often the same? When we're walking the path, all we see is the line beneath our feet, dust, struggle, repetition. But from a higher perspective, everything connects. The chaos becomes a pattern, the meaningless becomes meaningful. Perhaps the Nazca understood this intuitively. Maybe their lines were a metaphor for life itself, a reminder that we may never see the full picture of our actions, but that doesn't mean the pattern isn't there. Their work teaches us to trust the unseen, to keep walking our own paths, even when the destination is invisible. Legacy and continuation. The Nazca Lines have survived wars, colonization, and modern development. They have outlived languages, empires, and even memory itself. Yet they continue to speak to scientists, artists, and dreamers alike. In a world obsessed with progress, the lines stand as a paradoxical monument, something ancient that still feels ahead of its time. They remind us that progress isn't always about invention, it's about remembrance. To move forward, we must also look back, to the wisdom of those who lived in harmony with the land, who believed that art could touch eternity, and who understood that meaning is not measured by who sees it, but by why it was made. We are not so different from the Nazca. We too leave patterns, digital footprints, architectural monuments, signals sent into deep space. And maybe, millennia from now, some distant intelligence will look upon them and wonder what we were trying to say. The message will be the same one the Nazca left us. We existed. We reached for the sky. We dreamed of being understood. In the heart of the Peruvian desert, where the wind barely stirs and the horizon seems eternal, the Nazca Lines still wait, etched across time, silent yet alive. From above, they form patterns that defy logic and inspire awe. A giant hummingbird, a sprawling spider, a spiral, a tree, a hand reaching toward infinity. From the ground, they are nothing but shallow furrows in the dust. But when viewed together, from the heavens, they become something else entirely. A message from humanity's deep past. A language beyond words. The Nazca Lines remind us that not all communication needs sound or speech. Sometimes the most powerful messages are written in silence. The Nazca people may never have imagined airplanes, satellites, or Google Earth, yet somehow they created a language that transcended their own time. Their lines speak to us in geometry and symbolism, in alignment and mystery. They say, "Look closer, remember who you are. Remember that you are part of something far greater." Perhaps that's the real secret of the Nazca Lines. They are not just ancient drawings. They are a reflection of consciousness. Proof that even thousands of years ago, humans sought connection not only with the earth, but with the cosmos, with the unseen order that binds all things. Science and spirit intertwined. Modern archaeology explains the Nazca Lines through evidence, wooden stakes, erosion patterns, carbon dating, and ritual traces. Yet science, for all its precision, cannot fully capture the awe they inspire. Because when you stand there, in that vast empty plain, and realize that every line was carved by human hands, it's impossible not to feel something spiritual. It's the same feeling we experience when gazing at the night sky or peering into the ruins of ancient temples. The overwhelming sense that we are walking in the footsteps of those who long ago asked the same questions we still ask today. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Who, if anyone, is watching? The Nazca Lines don't answer these questions. They embody them. The desert never lies. Time moves forward, civilizations rise and fall, yet the desert keeps its secrets. The Nazca Lines have survived everything: the Inca Empire, the Spanish conquest, modern development. Even now, satellites continue to discover new shapes buried beneath centuries of dust. But as scientists decipher and tourists marvel, the deeper truth remains untouched. The Nazca Lines are not only about how they were made, but why. Maybe they were prayers for rain. Maybe they were maps of the heavens. Or maybe they were humanity's first attempt to say to the universe, "We are here, we exist, we are capable of wonder." In their simplicity lies a profound beauty. The same kind of beauty we find in the pyramids of Egypt, in Stonehenge, in the cave paintings of Lascaux. Testimonies to the boundless creativity of the human spirit. Echoes for the future. Thousands of years from now, what will future beings, human or otherwise, see when they look upon our world? Will our satellite trails, city grids, and radio signals appear to them as their own version of geoglyphs? Will they sense that same yearning to reach beyond our limits, to make meaning in a vast and silent universe? In this way, the Nazca Lines are not just relics. They are a mirror held up to time itself. They show us that technology changes, but wonder does not. That faith may take different forms, but the hunger for meaning endures. That long before telescopes or spacecraft, our ancestors were already speaking to the stars. The final message. As the camera pulls back, the desert fades into an ocean of gold and shadow. The hummingbird stretches its wings toward the horizon, the condor takes flight across eternity, and the spider waits patiently beneath the sand. The voice of the narrator softens. We walk upon the same earth as they did. We look up at the same stars, and perhaps in some way we are still tracing our own lines, invisible but no less eternal. The secrets of the Nazca Lines may never be fully known, but maybe that's the point. Because mysteries like these remind us that knowledge is not the end of wonder, it is the beginning. Closing narration for YouTube. If you've enjoyed this journey into the secrets of the ancient world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because our next exploration will uncover even more hidden chapters of humanity's mysterious past. And remember, the Earth still whispers if you know how to listen.